How do you communicate your observations? This is really important. How do I approach that person, right? If I'm sensing an attitude issue, if I feel like something is being a negative impact in our gym, sometimes we get a little bit nervous to have those conversations, and it's completely natural. Or some of us go into those conversations a little bit more aggressively, potentially, than we should, and you don't get the outcome that you're looking for, okay, potentially. It all depends on what you want personally. What happens next? We'll talk about that. Okay, so our staff, these are things that we felt were important just to share, like give you behind the curtain. What do we deal with? What does this mean to us if you're potentially not gonna fit on what we're looking for? We'll stop after the staff, and I really want you to engage and ask questions, and we'll talk about the staff topic. We'll move to parents. And then I really want you to ask questions revolving around the parent piece, okay? So let's just start with the staff. We love our staff dearly, okay? But because we love them, we want to make sure that we're setting the right expectations and that they're developing as individuals and professionals themselves versus maybe just looking the other way sometimes, okay? So really simple stuff. I'm sure y'all think it's important for people to show up on time and to be at practice, right? And so, you'd be surprised on how many staff sometimes decides, hey, maybe practice is an issue today, or, I can roll in 15 minutes late, stuff like that. If you look at, does anybody ever have any issues with that? Okay, all right. So I want to make sure we're not alone up here by ourselves.
I think we maybe deal with that a little bit more, is because we said in our first session we have between 3 and 5 coaches on each team. So sometimes they think, so-and-so's getting it started, it'll be fine, I can come in a little bit late, And then what happens is that creates a little bit of resentment towards that one person that always gets stuck, doing that job. So,
right, exactly. Yeah. Close to coaching and feedback, okay? So our coaches are coaches, right? Sometimes they don't like being coached, right? They don't like receiving feedback. And so in our gym, that potentially could be a misfit, right? Like not a good relationship, because Rebecca and I are really, especially myself, I come from a culture of corporate coaching. Everybody coaches everybody. You coach sideways, you coach down, you coach up. And it comes from a place of caring and being candor, all that is critical. And so a lot of our coaches in our industry aren't used, and if you're coaching in here, I'm not picking on you by any stretch. Owners are the same way, okay? Is that a lot of us just aren't used to that feedback, and we're not used to getting it. And so if it's important for you to be able, if you're a leader in your gym and you want to be able to tell somebody that something is happening and that you want them to correct it, they have to be open to that. Okay, and we're sharing, when I say they have to be, I'm talking about in our gym, okay? If it's not a good fit for you, we understand that, but we're just here kind of sharing our experiences, okay? Lack of engagement in meetings or team events. It's easy, especially your senior coaches. If they're not in team meetings and they're the ones not leading the way and leading from the front, they're not participating, they're not engaged, or you have an event, whether it's a team building event, if they're not there engaged and leading from the front, the entire team feels that. And so we make, especially our senior coaches, hyper aware of the importance of that, okay? It's all about me mentality. So what that means to us is that sometimes coaches will define themselves by their team. And that's normally the most common that we see. If their team doesn't do well on the floor, sometimes it's not as much about them, it's more about how they feel because the team didn't do well on the floor, okay? And that leads to poor behavior, reacting maybe, inappropriately with teams, or just a mood elevator drop, okay? The grass is greener outlook. Okay, so you may feel this as an owner more where, hey, well, this gym's doing this or that gym's doing this, and maybe their perception is that the grass is greener somewhere else. And they're always looking for that next thing versus focusing on what they're supposed to be doing right here in front of them. Okay? So when we look at our coaches and our staff, and this isn't just with coaches, I mean, obviously coaches are critical in your gym, but this is also with front desk staff. You know, it could be, whoever is involved in your process that you go through. Okay? So when we looked at this, we just kind of figured out, okay, these are our top bullet points, right, that impact us, that we find that we've had to coach over the last 5 years or so. And so this is a really good point for us to just, like I said, ask you, what are some of your thoughts? When you see this and you kind of hear what our thoughts are around it, does it raise any questions from you guys or any thoughts?
I have one coach in particular who's really close to coaching and all about me mentality, but more about she really has a good heart and she loves what she does, and it's really a struggle to. And any time I talk to her, she just cries,
right.
and then it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know how to put it into words. And she just, any tips about, how to combat that? Someone who's, just teary, like she's not teary in class. She's only teary when I sit down, take her aside, you can tell it's a formal conversation. We're sitting in an office, and it's like, right, we've got this issue, we've got this issue. Yeah. And sometimes I've gone about things, try to address them instead of individually, like I've tried all my coaches.
Yeah.
It might be I'm directing it at her,
Right,
but I'm
telling
talking to everyone, but still the message
then they
seems
don't get
to
it.
just
Yeah.
fall on deaf.
Yeah.
So why don't you want to give an example of the crier, or do you want to kind of talk to that? But I'll address the and you guys already know the answer to this. I promise you already know.
Yeah.
If you go with the overall message,
No,
the ones
component.
that need to listen to you are not listening to you because they don't think you're talking to them, right?
Yeah.
Right? They're just, oh, that's not me,
Yeah.
right? I'm probably the same exact way when my boss addresses me, or addresses a group. I'm like, that's probably not me, right? it happens, right? So that's one thing is that if they're not open to the feedback, we need to figure out a way to break that habit and to get that connection.
Yeah. I think anytime giving feedback to somebody, I learned this from teaching and working with my students, and just like you would do with your athletes, you always want to give. We called it I'm gonna edit it, but a crap sandwich. You want to give them like the good part. Then you want to kind of give them the okay, so this is something that let's just see if we can work on it. You know what I mean? And maybe do it like you're doing this because you do this amazing. You know what I mean? Just kind of fill it in, and they are usually receptive to it. Something I've also found with my staff that in situations like that, when I know that it's I'm like, hey, let's go for coffee. You know what I mean? Let's do something. Where it's, you can just sit and kind of get their feedback, like on, okay, so what are you thinking when you're coaching, some of the come from curious, like why, tell me what you're hoping to get out of this when this is the way you're coaching, you know what I mean? And I'll tell you some of the things that I see that maybe you can improve, approach it from a little bit different way in a non, like professional setting sometimes can help that a little bit,
Why don't you give us an example so we can kind of see what your process is like?
My wife does all the choreography and all that, and I look after on the business side. She's the really nice one, and I'm a little bit more, to the point. So I generally deal with these issues, especially with this individual coach, and that'll give her some direction on something to do after competition. We'll be like, look, one of her teams was going great guns all year, undefeated to the state, and then went down the gurgle because she just wanted to make the routine harder and harder, and it was like, okay, we need to step back, take it back to where it was, work on cleaning it and executing it better.
Right.
Yep, no problem, take it on board, awesome. Get to next comp, or even in class while we're watching it, it's like, you're not working on the right things which we've already said to do.
Right.
You've said you've acknowledged it, we spoke about it, and then you've just, it's like it's just gone.
Right.
And we're back to, let's make that harder.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Well, and if y'all, I think if y'all are the I want to say that we give our coaches free rein to kind of do that kind of stuff, but we also do give them feedback when we see, especially with our world's teams. I think sometimes we question some of the things they do, and so we kind of, we don't do this, but this would be my suggestion of something we should probably do, is maybe give them a timeline. Say, if the routine is not hitting by this time, you know what I mean, we need to take it back, you know what I mean? And it's always easier it's always easy to make it easier, you know what I mean? So I get what she's doing because, we just experienced that with this last one, but not at a critical time when, you know what I mean, comp season is about to come around and nationals, you don't want to do it right before then. So we usually, our difficulty, our routine is usually maxed out by NCA, and so then we have 2 more months to summit. So then we have 2 more months to make those skills perfected, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we
so here's what I would suggest. Okay, and and this is kind of a new theme in our gym, is create. I mean, and this again, it's going to sound very, very elementary. Is that you have the conversation like you. So this is what I would do if I were you, right? Hey, remember when we talked last time? Kind of revisit. Okay, so have we actually achieved that? The answer is going to be no. We already know the answer, right? We haven't really taken a step back and we haven't taken action on it. So now we're kind of at that point where I really need for you to have that plan. Okay, so you have an objective which they create, right? And the objective, we already know what it is. Okay, and then the tactics underneath that are critical, right? So let's keep it simple. So let's say it's 2 or 3 tactics. She's going to do 2 or 3 things that she's going to deliver to make what you're requesting happen. Okay, because it's your role. That's what you do, right? At the end of the day, the brand is you, and you only have one brand. Right, and that's it. That's all we have, is we have a brand, and it has to deliver a certain level of quality on what we feel the experience should be. So, making sure that and whenever you're interacting with somebody, make sure you're always sitting side by side. Don't sit this way. Okay, psychology behind that is we're shoulder to shoulder. We're not across the desk from each other. Okay, and so we're sitting here. Create those tactics, but they have to be specific. They have to be specific. On Tuesday, we're going to go from this in the elite to this, right? And we're going to make it do this. And then, so those 3 have to be specific so you can observe them. And somebody who doesn't know anything, well, should know anything about cheerleading, but doesn't know anything about the team or the athlete, but they understand cheerleading, they can walk in and say, okay, I see that those are happening. Not just you, but anybody could come in and see that those things are happening.
But going back to this, like if she's not receptive to that, you know what I mean, then that's when you probably need to, you know what I mean, sit down with her and say, I need you to just start being a little more open to our feedback. Otherwise, you know what I mean, like I'm going to need, I'm going to have to start making
and making it in things that they can relate to is really important, right? Imagine if they had an athlete that didn't listen to them, right? How would they behave? What would they want that athlete to do? And what makes this relationship any different? It's the same. It doesn't matter. It's marriage, personal, it's, athlete to coach, it's owner to coach, it's, owner to owner. It's all the same because it's all about communication and relationships. And so I would really be curious to see how that comes out, like actual actionable plans. I think you were next, ma'am. Did you have a question? Oh, I'm sorry.
Is she around? Is she quite young, or is she
No,
more
so
mature?
she's a little bit more mature. So we're quite young. My wife's 23 and I'm 26, and she is 21.
Yeah. See,
So-
I'm 19, and I'm going to be honest. When I first started coaching with my owner, I was very closed off to feedback because I felt really attacked by it, and I felt like I was being constantly criticised. But it was because I was approaching situations of my maturity and my age, so I wasn't understanding from her perspective how to approach it in a respectful manner, not like, seriously dude, like what's your problem, cut it out, I can do that better than you. But now I would say, are you okay? Is there something that we can work on together to make this easier for you? Is it something that we can do as a team, as a whole, to help you? And I used to cry out that, so I get that.
Well,
I was like the weakest.
I don't do
I would
tears
just
either.
cry.
Yeah.
I would cry all
Yeah.
the time. So I get that. Like for me with Emma, we've become really good friends, over the course. She was originally my teacher, and now, we own this gym together, so we're like a duo. But when we first started, it was, it was the way that she approached me about it was, dude, can we just chat for 5 minutes? And then we'd sit down on the floor, and I'd cry. And she'd be like, don't cry, you're guilty, but I need you to focus on your stuff. and
Yes.
then I'd move on with it. And then some sessions I'd say to Emma, look, I don't know if I feel confident with this, can you come and sit with me? And that was how we worked together. And now for everything that we have, we coach together because we just bounce off each other.
And if it ends up like, ultimately if it ends up hurting the team in the very end, like where they aren't successful because those changes were made and there wasn't an action plan behind it, to have it happen, then that's a more serious conversation. We can't have this happen again.
Hey, thank you for sharing that. I don't mean, we're going to get to everybody, but I know you had a question.
I don't know if anyone else has this problem, but do you guys have any staff that actually have children in your gym?
Yes.
Because I have this problem with, like my admin manager all of her daughters dance, and everyone thinks that they are always just at the front or whatever, just because mum works in the office. And it's usually those parents that don't have the kids that are, like the best in the class or whatever, but are working really hard.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like, is there any, can you give me any tips to deal with the parent side of that? Because at the moment,
You go ahead.
those kids that are, her kids are quite good too,
Yeah.
so that makes it worse because they have earned their right to be there, but everyone just thinks it's because she
Yeah.
wants to be, and it's just
Yeah.
frustrating.
So we have an athlete that's a U3, and we also have a world level athlete in the gym, right? And so that was a decision, a conversation that her and I had at the very beginning when we purchased the gym. And we sat our kids down, and I know this is different because they're not your personal kids.
Well, I have my own, sorry, I have
Yeah.
my own child that's going to happen too.
Exa-
She's going to be the dance teacher's daughter, but
Gotcha.
I haven't got to that because she's only 2, so
Yeah.
I really like to learn how to
Yeah.
But we actually sat our kids down and we let them know, listen, you're at the back of the line. Okay? You have to leave no doubt with your skill set and your behavior. If it's questionable on skill set in the athletes, you're going to not get the benefit of the doubt. You will be on level 2, they will be on level 3. That's a decision we made. Okay? Now, it has to be, okay, you're on a world's team and everybody's like, there's no doubt that individual's on the world's team because they look at them as an individual, not as our kid. You would be shocked that we spend probably less time with our kids than everybody else's, because that's just the way we feel that when they look at us, that they know there is no favoritism in our gym. Absolutely not. And so, which is probably the same in yours because they're talented kids, but those members have to feel that. They have to feel those kids having to do more, and they're like going, okay, now we see. And that's just how we do it personally. It doesn't mean that that's the right way to do it. I'm just trying to explain on, because that was we didn't buy our gym because our kids are in the gym. We did this because we always wanted to do something on our own, right? This is why we did it. And it just happened to be just enough of a comfort zone, because we've been coaching athletes for a long, long time in various sports. Enough of a comfort zone for us to say, yes, this is what we're going to do, because we have looked at a lot of different things to do, and this is just what happened to work. But we knew that was going to be a perception potentially.
Yeah.
And so we decided, what's our plan on how we handle this perception of having your own DNA in the gym? We have our front desk manager has 2 athletes in the gym. Okay. Our front desk receptionist has an athlete in the gym. So we experienced that, but it's not an issue in our gym because of how everybody knows. Back of the line. Okay. And I know it sounds harsh, but that's just, it hasn't been an issue in our gym.
Our son's in the back of the routine the whole time.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
it's all good. He tumbles. He's a great.
He wasn't in a stunt last year.
Yeah.
Because he didn't deserve to be in a stunt last year.
Right. Okay, let's go
Okay,
back.
sorry.
Okay, no, it's good.
No, go ahead.
Yes, your question.
I just wanted to tap on to you.
Sure.
Just see the date, like getting you accountable for what you're asking people for. Like I don't forget too, where maybe it's our staff. Sometimes I just go in there and like, that's the best. So I kind of like sit. I'll be like, I'm back in the experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and have you asked her like why, like, what's her, does she feel like she needs to make the routine harder to?
The division was really tough. It was junior one, so
Okay.
like really tough division.
Yeah.
And although they were winning, they had another team nipping it,
Yeah.
at their heels the whole time. And I think where she saw them continuing to win was different to where we saw them continuing to win. Like we thought, the routine was great, but it's got to be cleaner, and that'll give us,
Yeah,
another
the execution
point.
will be higher.
But
Yeah.
she thinks we make it harder and
Yeah.
get that half a point antiquity.
Yeah.
It didn't align up, and obviously.
Yeah, that's
So
interesting.
We were right at the end of the day. Like,
Yeah.
I knew we were going to be right.
Yeah.
And
Well, and I think pulling her aside, because it can go one of two ways. She can either understand what you're all saying now and conform, or it's maybe we're not the gym for you if we don't, we're not giving you the support that you want to do that type of thing because we feel differently. Maybe it's time to go find a gym that, you know what I mean? I mean, I know that's extreme, but that's what this whole topic is about, is sometimes if they can't conform to what you're wanting, sometimes it's best for everybody if you let them go, so I guess that's.
Did you have a question back there?
I was just going to say in relation to that is understand what's driving her behaviour, like what does her need? Is it fear of failure? Is it fear of rejection? Is it fear of her performance and being evaluated as coach? So rather than, it's great to have an objective, you've got your tasks and things that she needs to execute, but then interpersonally, like within herself, what is actually driving her behaviour, and maybe having that conversation and reflecting now, just wondering if it's related to this, this and this. And if you touch on it, she'll go yes, or if you don't, she'll go no, it's this. So taking some of that sort of psychological approach to it as well as just a formal sort of appraisal thing.
Yeah.
And you've got to match the both and balance the both because it's interpersonal. You're relating to her on a psychological, emotional level.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, it takes a village.
Yeah.
It does. Awesome.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to touch on one of the points that you've got up there, which is around team events and things. So we're a smaller gym. We also have a committee, and I'm the president of the gym committee, where our remit is about fundraising for travel so that we can send teams internationally to nationals and everything. So we have a series of family-based, and we use that also to build a better club culture.
Right.
So we have a series of events through the year where we have a high expectation for all of our coaches and also senior members of the club, so our senior girls,
Yeah.
to come along because they drive the culture, of course, for the junior girls. And it's really hard for us to get them to
The
commit.
staff.
So we're in a situation, and it's not just the staff, it's the senior
Yeah.
girls as well, like our senior
Yeah.
teams. Because we're in a situation, I'm sure many of you have, where there may not be the only jobs that some of our coaches have.
Yeah.
They work with us during the week, but then they have weekend jobs, or they're in uni,
Right.
or they're this or that, and that sort of thing. So, does anybody have any ideas, and we don't want to do that, it's part of your remit, as it's compulsory, because then you start getting, well, I don't get paid for that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, just so you know, that's completely normal. Senior teams, and it's usually I shouldn't say that, it's all of our senior teams, we kind of deal with that, but our coaching staff as well. Like when we're doing fundraisers to try to help, like a scholarship. Yeah, exactly.
But more important, I think it's not just like the fundraising, the dollar side of it, but for us it's also about that ensuring strong culture.
Right.
Strong culture.
Well, and one thing that I talked about yesterday was, and this might be an idea, is we have coaches who are athletes as well, but even for your coaching staff, if you set a number, listen, we have to raise this much money for your flight and your, so basically by coming to these events, you are working because you're helping raise the money that's going to offset this, these things. And if not, you're going to need to pay them, because we pay for our staff for everything for our staff. You know what I mean? We pay for their flights, we pay for everything. So we, and then the scholarship athletes who, help fill those positions on our world's teams that that they wouldn't be there if we didn't, help out. So we we put in there, like you're trying to raise $1,300 and then we make a payment on their account, once they, you work, you make so much per hour as you're working and you can earn those off, but you can say, hey, you can.
We do the same thing, we've got a travel point system.
Yeah.
It's actually for all of our athletes.
Yeah.
So we get 2 years, we fundraise for 2 years. All of our athletes can earn up to $300 off their flights and accommodation.
Okay.
In Melbourne.
Yeah. Yeah.
They come along and do
Yeah.
barbecues and sausage sizzles and
Yeah, well, and maybe do it for your
Sausage
coaches too, and say you can either, I don't know if you pay for
I'm
theirs or
learning.
if they pay for theirs,
Love it.
but yeah, yeah. So it's, just remind them, hey, you guys, this is a huge expense that we're undertaking. Like you have to earn it, or you can give us the money for it. Do you want us to take it out of your check, or do you want to come help with this? And and give them that option, because if they, you know what I mean. I think that, gosh.
How often are your events?
Well, we wouldn't expect, and that's the other thing, is that we don't expect everyone to come to everything.
Mhm.
Right.
We do about 6 main events during
Yeah.
the year.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the biggest one is always at the beginning of the year, so we're coming up in about 4 weeks. We've got what we call the meet and greet,
Yeah.
which is not even a fundraising event, it's actually
Yeah.
just a club event where we get to meet all the new athletes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a really great opportunity for the younger athletes to meet the older ones, because otherwise the only time that they often see them is at comp, when we're sitting there and cheering them on,
Yeah.
because aren't always on the floor together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
we
yeah.
want the younger girls to be engaging with the older girls, going, oh my God, I want to be in that team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess, so you're asking for, are there any alternatives? Like, or do you have any ideas, right? And so just spitballing, go ahead. You
We did it was our first year traveling to Melbourne March Internationals, and we were doing fundraising events throughout the year, but we created a timetable system for the event where the kids could pick a buddy, and they could spend time with the buddy and both of their parents, and we found that really great. And then when we ended up going to nationals, a group of them actually went out and they went on a haunted house tour, and it was really nice to see, because they had tried to buddy up throughout the fundraising events of the year, and they were our fundraising. They were a really good team together.
Yeah.
The parents and the kids. So I found that buddy system of
Yeah.
fundraising events worked really well.
Yeah.
So sausage sizzles and stuff that comes back.
Yeah. I know,
Awesome.
yeah. And we did, we some of our team moms, because we went through that yesterday, but we have team moms for each of our teams, and they have a sister team, like our Medusa has, Youth One, and so they do little things together, and those kids just love them so much, you know what I mean? And so,
Yeah.
and once the older kids start seeing that,
Do you do sort of
yeah.
a couple of levels apart?
It just depends, yeah. Yeah, and it's hard once you get to the junior teams, you know what I mean? Some of those kids on the junior teams are, older than some of the kids on the senior team. So it's, you just have to place them right and do this. Our team moms are incredible. We let them deal with all of that. We're find a sister team, y'all come up with a, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
We're moving up.
Yes, sir.
So at our club, we have, a few problems. There's one staff that her parent is, so she's a cheerleader, she's a coach, and her parent is the financial person.
Yes.
And we've noticed a fair bit of the financial person is putting a bit more money towards specific people.
Right.
They're so my sister's the owner of the club, and we have a second owner, which is, so we train with a gymnastics venue.
Right.
And it's a joint club, and so the money tends to go to those people before the actual club owner. And,
Fundraised money, or?
yeah,
Oh,
fundraising
okay.
money for
Okay.
them to go away. So when we were coming to here, one of the people were getting $700, and another person was getting $200,
Right.
which was my sister. So they were giving more to the person that is a level 2 coach than the club owner.
Yeah.
And it just it wasn't being fair. But then for the child of that person, when we try and tell them that they need to fix things or something like that, they then get all feisty back, and my sister can't even tell that she's doing something wrong,
Yeah.
and she'll just have wants to go at you. And when she gets the judge's report card, she just loses it, and she thinks that everything's her fault. And
Yeah.
she ends up this year, for this year's routine, she got put into a different coaching spot, and she felt from last year that she wasn't good enough, so she's trying to just use the same routine as what we used last year because we came to first.
Right. Right. And that's all the same person?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's a lot of issues.
Yeah.
I know.
Let's parking lot that, and let's talk about
yeah,
that
that's
offline.
more serious.
That's
That's definitely
that's
something serious.
That's a little
that,
different.
Checks
Okay.
and balances.
Let's move
yeah,
on to the.
I know. Yeah.
Let's move on to the parents.
Okay.
Okay.
If you're not at that fundraising event, you don't raise any of that money. You're not sharing that.
Yeah.
It's not fair.
That's why we do the travel points. You have to earn travel points at some stage during the period to actually be able to recoup any of the travel dollars.
Yeah.
Right.
So you can choose not to come to anything and pay 100%. That's your
We have
choice.
Yeah.
But I think where we problem is that it's hard for us to get it's the coaches
Coaches.
and the senior team members because you need them. You need them as part of it, because otherwise you end up with the same junior girls coming every single time, never seeing their coaches
Right.
never seeing their
Here,
the senior girls there. They're like, well, hold on a second, why do we have to come and do all of this all the time when none of those girls?
Yeah.
so, I mean, my suggestion, and this is completely not I don't know how everything works in your gyms. However, if to make it scalable for those individuals that you want to attend, I would say, hey, listen, you know what? We don't have, this is the obvious issue that we're having, the attendance issue, okay? We're having this attendance issue. I'll tell you what, we have 6 events. I need for you to commit to 2. Commit to 2. And when you come to these 2, you have to be fully engaged. And I mean, I can't make it more simple than that. I would just encourage that, you know, and
I like the word that you use, commit, rather than compulsory, because as soon as you start throwing the word, it's compulsory for you to come to events too, then that's when they seem to have that. Then they're just like, hold on, stop, the grass is ready there, and you get that conflict in our personalities.
I think you, like, just to add on, like, say you've got to commit to give them the option, put it out there, like, what do you want to do? Like, if they're always seeing these, you know, like a disco night or something, it doesn't appeal to a 15, 16, 17-year-old. You know, put it to them, be like, what do you want to do? Like, we let our staff do all the organising of that stuff. I don't touch it because...
Yeah, or let the senior girls help with it, because they'll come up with something that you never would have thought of, and they all love it,
Okay. All right, let's move on to the parents. Okay, so just to kind of recalibrate, we're talking about, you know, potential, you know, I know bad attitudes is kind of aggressive. Just culture fits, right? And so when we look at parents, right, here are some of the things that we look for, okay? Victim mentality, we talked about that yesterday. You know, the coaches have it out for my athlete potentially, right? You have that parent, hey, you know, they don't like my kid. And like I said, most of you coach, who does not want their athlete to be amazing? I haven't found a coach yet who is out there cheering for their team, wanting a kid to mess up. I've never seen it. Hopefully I never run into it, okay? My athlete is being bullied. That's different. You know, that word gets thrown around quite a bit, right? When I was younger, I didn't really know what bullying was, but now I probably had the same behaviors applied to me, but now there's that thing, and so we have to deal with that, right? We have to have a plan to deal with that type of situation. Social media, some parents are completely irresponsible on social media, okay? If they're and then we have a couple of coaches that are parents in our gym there, so they act like they're coaches. So we thought we would share some of the challenges that we have when we identify potential non-culture fits that we see, and share those with you and see if those resonate and see if you had any questions around those.
On the social media and the giving coach advice, we like nip those in the bud almost immediately. You know, it's the same thing. Other parents are following those parents. They screenshot, they send to us, and we just had to deal with that this past weekend. And so the faster that you address it, the faster, you know, it's taken down, and everybody says, wait, hold on, I went back to look at that post and it's not there. Something must have happened. Rebecca and Danny called them. And so, and same with the coaching advice. We, you know, nip that in the bud. Right, you have to right away, otherwise they...
And these are things that we highlight. These are things that, as if you've been in our last sessions that we do, it's not something that you just do. It's pre-parent meetings. This is our culture. This is what we do. If you're that parent that's going to do this, this may not be the potential culture fit for you. Okay? They make a team that we reiterate it. We get more granular and more granular as we move through. So a lot of this gets taken care of. However, you're going to have those ones that float to the top. Yes, ma'am.
How do you deal with parents who jump on their kids' social media, not like a page for your club, but then they get in on the argument, you know, and don't you talk to my kid this way, and blah, blah, blah. So you haven't got any control over their social media page, like it's a parent commenting on a kid's page, but it's not part of the club Facebook page.
Well, if you're going to be in our gym and you're going to wear the uniform, you need to represent well on your own personal page. There's been several times when a parent jumps on there and decides that they want to do something, right? I'm like, hey, listen, come in. This is the situation. And here's our outlook on it. You can do whatever you want. Okay? You can, right. But if you start impacting my brand, okay, then it becomes, well, we have to make a decision. And you're putting me in a position to make a decision, right? So let's work together on this. Let's figure this out. Is being in our gym more important, or this more important? You know, and I know you know, right? I get it, but that's how we handle it. We're very on it, but we also set the expectation with our parents that we are going to be on it. And if you haven't been in our sessions before, we used to not do, hey, your email cannot have Stars Vipers in it. Your social media cannot have SV in it. That was the first step and angle that we went. But we actually switched a couple of years ago where we encouraged all of them to put SV underscore their names. And you'd be surprised on how easy it is for us to police poor behavior on social media. Because our parents, you know, we're very blessed. We have great parents, great athletes, great community. And so they believe in our brand, and they'll screenshot, send us information so we can handle that. But that's a great question.
Yeah.
Let's see. Giving coaching advice, like Rebecca said. That's definitely our job. That's what they pay our coaches to do. You know, and we kind of express the relationships that they and kind of what their role is in the gym. But I will tell you, and I tell this, if you walk up to my parents, they will tell you, if they ask who are the most important coaches in our gym, it's our parents. Okay, you guys probably already preach that to your parents, but we verbalize that to them, and we explain to them why they're the most important coaches and how their behavior with their athletes day in and day out impacts what happens when they walk in and deliver them to practice to us. It's critical.
When we say that, it's the mental part of it and the supportive part, not the skills part, which some parents get confused with that. So that's where you have to,
give that kid a hug, love them up,
Yeah.
make sure you're supporting them and doing all the things that need to be done. But then when you bring them to us, let us do our job and make sure that you're influencing them positively. Okay, so let's go to athletes. Abusive actions. Mostly social media or verbal, okay, when you're dealing with teenagers, you know, a lot of it's on social media. Poor sportsmanship and attendance and engagement. So I wouldn't say abusive actions is our top one. It's just something we're very aware of because of the social media presence and, you know, the term bully, those types of things. We're just very aware of it. So we have it up there where if this is your behavior, potentially you're not going to be a culture fit. Poor sportsmanship, you got to learn to win, you got to learn to lose. And then attendance and engagement. This is, you know, where we experience this the most is when athletes come from potentially a different gym or come from a different sport. And they've gone through all the process with us, but for whatever reason, they just think you're not serious, right? And so kid has a fever or whatever, they need to be in the gym. You know, kid has, you know, an injury, they still need to be at practice. You know, you just can't say, hey, we're not going to show up today, you know, types of things, because we actually follow through with those rules. Sometimes, very rarely, we'll run into those. So what kind of potential culture misfits do y'all potentially run into in your gym with your athletes?
I've fixed something, but it's worth saying about. The athletes, the poor sportsmanship side was more about them not understanding what was happening on the floor with the rules. So they were being really bad sports and saying that they should have won and stuff. So then we did a parent and an athlete conference separate and explained the rules of cheerleading as much as you can, to try and get them some education, so then they wouldn't be bad sports about it. They'd go off and I'd say, you know, you're sulking, remember what we said about the rules and why you probably didn't win.
right,
And then, education has helped that.
yeah.
Awesome.
And I think,
How far they came doing what they did, like,
It
was
turned everything around. It was amazing.
yeah.
Awesome.
And I think they, and all of these, these are all, like, we've talked about the past 2 days, it's communication and communicating when these things start happening. And then, but then after these initial conversations that you have, if none of these behaviors change with these individuals, that's when we move to the next step. And that's the hard part. So, yes.
Can I just ask a question just in regards to sportsmanship? If your kids, like I know you guys probably have a different brand to what mine is, but how do you go about teaching them now when they do lose? Like, what do you do with them to, like, I find it really hard to everyone wants to win and everyone wants to be the best, and it's like, but it's okay not to be that sometimes. You know, what do we do to try and teach them that it's okay if you're not the top of the thing, you know, you can aim for that, but if you never get there, then you're not any less than the person that does, if you know what I mean. I feel like kids these days are being pushed so hard to get to that top spot, and when they don't get there, they're just like,
it's
there's
been
only one top spot. Like, I know but there is only one top spot when you've got 20 teams in a division. You can't be that top spot, and no matter how hard you train, whatever, if that's not where you get to, then what do we do when they're all like, we suck? You know, like.
Well, I think that goes back to we've spent a whole day like explaining like our process, but it's a couple things. We communicating with them way ahead of time. You know what I mean? Like, listen, we're going to put you in this position, but if we get to our first 2 competitions and we see that we're not being successful in those divisions, we make changes. And so that's why for us picking teams at the beginning of the year to make sure they're set up to, you know, be capable of winning NCAA. Like that's our goal, is that, you know, and getting to Summit. You know, so that's kind of on our, you know, where we take a step back and we're like, okay, we set them up to put them in a position that they may be, you know, if they're getting last place or, you know, 10th or whatever each time, we didn't do our job right at the beginning, you know what I mean, when we chose the team. And so we always make changes. I mean, we will on our end, but we still don't expect them to win. You know, we just want to be able to put them in success to place top 5. You know what I mean? Like if they can't do that, that's on us. You know what I mean? Like we own that, and
I'll come from a different perspective on that a little bit, because that's more of the, hey, where are we going to finish on the mat, right? And you'll see it in one of our slides. I don't know if it's in this presentation or another one, but it all depends on what's your culture in your gym, right? If you're chasing first place and that's all you talk about, then your kids are going to potentially base their success on first or second, right? So what we talk about is the journey. We coach to the journey, right? And so we're always focusing on the journey. Guess what? On that journey, sometimes you're going to finish second, sometimes you're going to finish third. And you guys already know the answer, and I know you know the answer. When do we learn the most?
When we lose.
When we fail. When something happens that doesn't go the way as planned. Because then you can look back, if you're self-aware and you're always wanting to improve, you're going to try and figure out what could I do differently, how could I be better at that. And so to answer your question is, if you talk about the journey, and this is just my languaging that I use with my kids. You know, our focus when we step on that mat is that you have to love each other. You have to care about each other out on that mat, and you always have to have each other's back, right? The judges need to see that you actually care about each other. And if you get to that level of understanding and you get to that level of commitment on the mat, then we're not focused on the outcome. Now granted, I know everybody wants to win. I really, really do know that. But if they go out there and they execute that, there's no way they can lose. I know it sounds cliche, and I know it sounds silly, you know, kind of like, oh, well, yeah, that's great in the fairy tale. But if you live that and that's the reality, then you never can lose. Mm-hmm. So that's the mentality I teach my kids. That's really what my role is in our gym, is the psychology and developing them as athletes. Yes, sir.
I think what you say about kids before they get on the stage will be like, don't watch you on the wall. But it's like, there's nothing we can do. If they're better than you, they're better than you today. It's going to give you a false sense of hope that you've already won. So right now, we're just going to do us and go out there and be the best us we can be today, and that'll get us where it's going to get us.
Exactly.
That education, isn't it?
Yeah.
Talking about the score sheets and saying, giving those points of improvement, how we did better this comp over last comp. It says to me, it's only good for you,
Right.
We flipped our whole thing away from placing at all. You know, we actually don't even, we've been very successful since we have. But they set goals themselves, they go to comps. And we let them do whatever they want. And because of the way that we've been trying to educate them more about success and what success is to us, not one of their goals is a better place. It's all, I want to get a clean walk over, or you must start, I want to, and so when they come off the mat, they feel successful
more of that.
Yes, we talk about that all the time. If you focus on the outcome, you're going to skip the steps in between. If you focus on those steps, then the outcome's going to be the outcome.
But it's actually just exhausting.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah. And that's what when I was saying that, like the actual tryout process for us is the most important part of our season. I mean, you know, like we spend 24 hours with those kids before we place them on teams. So anyway, I know we're getting off subject. I'm sorry. Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Move on. We find an issue with kids, and it's a pet peeve for me personally, when I had a kid come into the gym and they're just rude to their parents, unnecessarily rude. I'm like, not my gym, no you dare.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we find that, you know, some of these kids, they don't tend to last very long,
Right.
but they come in and they're rude, and it's one of my biggest hates, and trying to combat that is how do we combat that? If they're going to do that to their parents,
Right.
you know,
They're probably going to do
No.
it to you or an athlete. Yeah.
You know, that's,
it's going to be
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We just and one of the athletes on our junior 3 that we had that situation the first day in the gym. Heard her tell her mom to F off, and she lasted all but 2.5 months. So.
And that's where from our last, you know, where you listen a lot more than you transmit. Okay, you observe those behaviors and your gut's going to tell you the right thing. Okay, so that's a great point. We had that experience this year. I literally saw a kid coming in frustrated, and she thought I couldn't see her, and the parent was, and I saw her word "I hate you" to her parents, and I was like going, I need to memory bank that one. And then sure enough, we see additional behavior, and that's not a culture fit.
Yeah.
Okay, so what our philosophy is, we tell our parents, we do not kick people out of our gym. We do not kick kids off our team. Okay, we don't fire our staff. We just don't believe that those are the actions that need to happen. What we do is we set expectations. All right, we make sure that we're mentoring our staff, we're mentoring our athletes, we're mentoring our parents. Okay, we grow. We're very open about what we expect, and we deliver a consistent experience on our end every day. So if someone doesn't meet the expectations, or they tend to kind of like always be that conversation, they tend to let themselves off of the team. Okay, so athletes let themselves off the team because we have expectations that we set and clear behaviors that we desire. If they don't meet those, then they understand that the next step is for them to let themselves off the team. It doesn't happen like that. It's a process that you go through because these are young people, and we much rather, this is probably the wrong word to use, but instead of just taking the path of least resistance and moving the kid off the team and going on and focusing on others, because sometimes that's the right thing to do, but we much rather develop that athlete. And we much rather invest the time to develop that athlete. But we can only help people that want to help themselves. Okay?
And in that situation that I was telling you about, we had contacted the mom to tell her that her daughter's social media was inappropriate and it was extreme, like some of the things that she said. We had it, proof, screenshots, and the mom then got defensive.
She pushed back.
And she pushed back, so she removed herself. They ended up quitting before we could kick them out. So,
yeah, they let themselves off the team. Yes?
On the slide there, you say that any person who poses an immediate risk.
Yes.
What would you classify as an immediate risk?
Physical? Just something that's just obvious, right? You look at it and go, "Oh, can't have that in the gym."
Yeah, we had a coach who we hadn't had time to get his background checked. Deanna received a phone call from the former gym that he was under investigation for with something, and it wasn't even a question,
Yeah.
And we
whether it's true or not true, we were dealing with kids.
We couldn't take that risk. So out.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's very few and far between, but it just needs to be said, right? It just needs to be out there. Okay. All right. As far as that last philosophy slide, I probably should just go back to it. Any observations? Any questions at all? I haven't been asking enough. Good. Okay.
It's very true. I think we've had one athlete for 6 years now who's falls onto the bottom.
Yeah.
You just have to.
You got to talk about it though, right?
Yeah.
It's definitely the norm. Okay, so how to communicate your observations. This is normally where people struggle the most. All right. Does anybody get? I'm not looking at my phone to look at my phone. We're really bad on time. I'm like, hey, let me check my phone. No, we're just really bad on time, and we always like run out of time. So, does anybody face challenges when they're getting ready to have these communications? Does anybody struggle? Okay. So, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Passionate and angry and righteous.
Right.
We've all been in that moment ourselves. Individuals, I think, where something is conflicted against us and we're really angry about it.
Yeah.
But I think that's why we get it.
Bless you.
The other
Yeah,
side
bless
of it, and as you say, it's really confrontational and you go,
Yeah.
You want to talk about that preparation for this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think, one of the most important things that we have found is if you are seeing, these behaviors or like, what he was demonstrating back there, you have to document all of that. That's from our teaching and our background. Like we make sure that we have, when we do go into a meeting and we're having to confront somebody on a serious issue, that we have all of our facts in line, you know what I mean? And usually sometimes this is other meetings that we have had, with them. And so, the first meeting that we go into is always, coming from curious, like that's, tell us a little bit about what's going on your end so we can, figure this out. But by the time we get to this point where we're needing to make a decision on whether or not they're gonna, they want to stay in our program or not, you have to take the emotion out of it, and you have to take that they've been with us 6 years attitude out, because you ultimately are trying to make a decision for your business and whether or not it's going to, your reputation, everything, comes with that. So, and then, always check yourself with a reliable, objective resource. So I call everybody I know who may have been involved with a situation, or I contact them to make sure that I'm not missing something. You know what I mean? Because I think we've all dealt with that, right? We've gone into a meeting with one thing and we hear something totally different and it changes our whole outlook, And, the other day somebody had mentioned, one of the parent always late, but their, other kid had cancer. And so nobody knew, so it was, you always walk in there, and so you have to make sure that you're getting everything before you step into that room if you're going to confront them. And then,
So for some of you that were not in our prior meetings, coming from curious is probably the most important thing that you need to come from, right? So for those of you, I know you've already heard it 100 times, but you're going to hear it one more time because it's that important, is we usually go into these processes of coming from a very judgmental point of view, okay?
Or we're angry because they've vented. And
we're defensive, we're judgmental, we're already trying to, we're already assuming that we know the outcome, right? Whereas if I can get myself to that curious state, then instead of trying to solve the problem right away, I'm just trying to understand that problem. So it's really important to understand those dynamics. If you're just that optimistic person all the time that's up here, you're going to be really, really good in these conversations, okay? Be honest and direct. I'm going to probably give you, I tell my wife about this because to hear her talk the way she's talking right now is amazing, right? Because when we first started, it was like, I want everybody to be happy, but not that she doesn't want that right now, okay? Because if you haven't figured out.
I wanted to save everybody and have them, try to change their mind and have them happy and stay in our club, and and it's. Yeah, so
that's why she's with me. She's trying to change me still. It's been 20 plus years. She's still trying. But I would share this with her a lot because we would get in these conversations and I'd watch her talk to the people and it was like, dance around over here. I'm just dancing around over here. And it's like I paint the analogy for her. Do you want to get shot in the stomach like 4 times and bleed out, or do you just want one right in the head, right? Just be done, right? Right. And so just be direct and be honest, right? When you get to that point where you have to deliver the information, deliver it straight up with them, right?
And then,
it's called candor with care, right? You actually are caring about them by being direct with them because they're sitting there, all this different stuff as you're just kind of dancing around it. Yeah. So check yourself, role play with somebody before you go into that conversation. When I'm driving to work and I already know I'm going to have to work on some type of, employee relations, especially in my corporate life that I do every day. I have like an hour commute. I'm talking through it. I am talking through it. What could they say? What am I anticipating? What is that? Am I staying curious? And so role play that process.
Right.
You have to practice those conversations
so
as you're
scary.
working through
And
this.
it is for me. I don't think it's quite as scary for him, but because he's done it for so long. But I had a situation last week where I had to not remove a girl from a team, but it was at one of our prep teams. Our prep teams, our attendance policy is a little bit more lenient, but she had missed 5 practices. And so I had to call her in and make a decision, and I had to tell her, okay, you have a choice. Your daughter can, it didn't affect our numbers, your daughter can squat in the back the entire routine if she wants to stay on this team, because we can't trust you to have her here and in any formations, or she can decide not to be on the team. And it was so hard for me to just be quiet. And, because I wanted so bad to say, this or this, like I wanted to try to, to soften the situation for this mom, but it was a very tough message I was delivering to this mom, basically telling her that she was, irresponsible in not bringing her kid, and but doing it in a tactful way, and so she just kind of was like, it was so awkward and so hard, but I told her, I said, I feel like your money would be better used taking tumbling classes or doing something else, because you're wasting her time and our time by her not being here, So it's it ended up, she quit and she's now in tumbling classes, but because of how we approached it, but I had kicked that can down the road for a very long time, and my coaches were very frustrated with me because I didn't want to have that confrontation. It's prep team, they're tense a little bit, but after now, the team has taken off a lot more because they're able to know she's not going to be there, she's not in the routine, so we can focus on so. Okay.
Great job.
Did you have that conversation with the child or just the mother?
With the mother. Yes. She's a little girl. She was, seven. Yeah. So it was. It wasn't. If she would have been older, we probably would have approached the athlete if she was older and said, are you always going to be late? And what's your reasoning for being late? And then we would have gone to the parent. But yeah.
Okay, guys. So this is just boring stuff that you probably already know, but we got to have it up here in case you don't know the steps in dealing with these types of situations, especially with your employees. Your documentation is critical, okay? Performance improvement plans, that's kind of what we were talking about. What's our action plan? Be specific, be timely, set an outcome that you're looking for. I know it's not fun to talk about, believe me, I understand that. But in order for you to spend your time wisely, you have to have some type of structure. I would recommend you have some type of structure in place to deal with a potential employee that you already know you're not happy with what's happening, okay? But if you have a plan in place and how you handle it, it keeps you organized and you maintain your documentation is very important. So this is just a traditional, corporate type process. You have, a performance improvement plan, has to be clear, has to be actionable, has to be timely. Okay, and you have your final notice. Okay, hey, listen, if this action happens again, you're dismissed from this group. Now, in our world, we tend to worry about, oh man, if something happens and I got to release this coach, everybody's going to freak out. Okay, or man, what's going to happen? And so it prevents us from taking that action. Has anybody ever faced that situation where they were kind of maybe a little concerned about reprimanding or providing that because y'all are worried about how the parents might react or the athletes might react?
Last year, we had to let the head coach go.
Yeah.
Last year, right in between 2 comps with only.
Right.
And on the spot dismissal with parents coming in to train that afternoon. We lost, Angie's going with the gym, lost 5 athletes in 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Parents went viral on social media.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Coach went viral on social media to the parents.
Right.
Yeah.
To give their perspective on the situation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It was
Yeah.
challenging.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you're here, right? You're and the sun came up the next day, right? Maybe it's going to be fine. It'll all work out. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm not saying, hey, go and try and do this. I'm just saying, hey, when you go through this, you're going to grow, you're going to learn, you're going to have more experience. The process, it's just part of what we go through every day. Now, if we do get to that point, and I'm glad that you brought that example up, if you get to that point and you have to make this decision, you have to be ready. Your communication to your membership has to be ready, way ahead of time. You already have to know, I'm anticipating this is going to happen. My communication has to be out there.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay? Yeah. Yeah. And so, hey, you face that in between two comps. You got to make that decision. You take a step back and you say, and I'm Monday morning quarterback, or I'm doing this after the play, so it's easy for me to tell you this, right? But that's why it's up here. You have to be first. You have to be ready to communicate to your membership, let them know that you understand the situation, that you know which direction you're going in, that you wish this individual the best moving forward, and this is the next step that we're taking, right? You're still going to get the feedback, you're still going to get the concerns, but there's not as much grayness for them to perceive what's really happening. Mm-hmm. You're telling them what has just happened, okay? Because that's you're a leader, right. That's your job.
And being tactful about it is... Right. The whole thing.
5-minute conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is,
yeah.
And it's hard to.
We've got an issue after the last competition, which was a bit of something didn't really work, and the way we spoke to somebody on the that was not appropriate, blah, blah, blah. And by 5 minutes later, it was, I'm getting a phone call from Angie going, I had to fire her. She told me to, no.
Right.
Yeah. So in that situation, just a suggestion might be, and I don't even know if it would be valid in this situation, buy yourself a little bit of time. Okay. So you already know what the answer is based on that conversation. Hey, let's get together tomorrow at noon, and let's just finish the conversation. But I know. Yeah, I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was something else. I'm just saying that if you run into that situation and it's not one of those ones, try and give yourself a little time to get your communication together, because you already know what the answer is going to be when you get together tomorrow afternoon. Mm-hmm. But just give yourself a little bit, just a thought.
And like you said, we'll go through something here in a little bit, but sometimes it's a blessing in disguise. You just don't at that moment, and you don't realize it, but it is.
Yeah. So the biggest thing to take away from this, guys, is be first with your communication. If you haven't figured that out, but all this other stuff is just to help you. If you're not familiar with this process, it'll help you just kind of work through it.
Yeah.
So just on a side sort of note, this is a situation we had a kid who we told all the kids in front of everyone straight up, if you're not at this extra practice, we need this extra practice. If you're not at this extra practice, you can't compete your cheer routine. Yeah. And we were very upfront with her, very straight to her. This is the thing. The mother told us she's not coming, and I'm like, well, I'm sorry, she can't be in the cheer routine. Didn't say anything about our program, didn't say anything about our pom routines, because we make cheer compulsory for the kids. Wasn't removed from the program. The mother blew up, child blew up. You kicked my kid off the team. I'm like, no, I didn't.
Yeah. They kicked themselves off.
Kicked themselves off.
Yeah.
But we had a situation where we didn't get to see the kids until like the next middle of the week. So this was a Saturday, and we didn't get to see the kids till next middle of the week. So by the time we got to, seeing the kids, they already had this girl already made a group chat and said, I've been kicked off, I'm a horrible person, blah, 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 and given them a story that when they got to the practice, we went, look, this is what happened. We by no means kicked them off. We told you all this is the rules, and she chose not to follow them. And you can see the kids going, in that situation,
you wish you could have,
that should have been, communicate to those parents straight away, or
right.
No, we faced the same situation.
Was it? Well, obviously, okay. So, had she missed the practice, or she's?
The practice was still coming up.
Okay.
It was,
it was
a week away.
Yeah.
We hadn't even had it yet.
Yeah. Well, in those situations, what, like he said yesterday, what we do is we just say, our rules, our expectations. If she chooses not to show up, at that time will make a decision. And you know, there have been situations, and I send out communication afterwards because we want to make sure we're being consistent with our policies, where we had one girl who was not able to make a practice. It was like the practice before summit, and it was she was at a volleyball tournament, and the plane didn't come back. But everybody knew our expectations. We had other parents who would cancel things to have their kids there. So we had to make a decision. And we sent out, we had parents that were upset that she wasn't kicked off, but we sent out a communication very clearly that was said, you know, the girl first sent out an apology letter to the team, but then we sent out this just saying, you know, we know our policy. We always, you know, enforce our policy. However, in this situation, we felt like it was better for the team and the morale of the team that, you know, heading to summit in confidence, that she remain on the team. So it was, but you know, we wanted them to know we did make an exception, but we're letting you know we made an exception. And so, you know, but maybe I think doing that, they always miraculously will find, they know they're going to get kicked off, but you haven't actually told them.
Right.
So like if you choose not to show up, we've got to.
This mother made it very, very, very clear
Yeah.
that she was not.
Well, then you really don't want, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you don't want somebody like that in your program.
So
You know what I mean?
that family, definitely
Yeah.
like, it was more the kids getting to
Yeah.
because we wanted to speak to them. We
Yeah.
wanted to
Right.
speak to them face to face.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and by the time we got them there, they
Yeah.
already.
Well, and maybe sending something out to the parents saying, listen, you know, we know your athletes are upset. We've heard, you know, this. If you could just communicate with them that, you know, we have certain expectations and certain rules. And so that at least the parents could kind of get in their ear. And the parents appreciate that too, because they're like, okay, you have followed through with what you said you were going to do. And, you know, we're making the commitment to be there, and this individual is not. So we're going to defend y'all, you know, and they're usually pretty good about that. So.
It's obviously we're giving you slides in a vacuum, and you know, in the perfect situation. So you're going to have those situations where you're not going to be able to react in the time that we're suggesting you do, and it's just we face the same challenge. You know, like not to keep on the subject, but there's been many times where I shouldn't say many, but the time that we dealt with this year with the where we had to exit 3 kids off the team, all the kids kind of knew about it ahead of time because they were all on social media together. So, you know, it is what it is. You just do the best you can when that happens. I didn't know I had this slide in here. Addition by subtract. By.
Oh, sorry.
She quoted me. So this is probably one of the biggest things I taught my staff. Because they would panic. Oh my God, so and so's not coming back this year, or you know, this individual we're going to have, you know, they're not on the team anymore, or they're going to leave, or whatever the case may be. And this is where without them knowing, I'm exercising that listening and not transmitting. Okay, just sitting there and observing the situation that you can see escalates to someone no longer being on our team or on our staff, and when you're when you're seeing that and you're just really listening and watching the behaviors versus trying to solve everything all the time, then when we do finally get to that point, maybe there's other people that aren't listening as much as they should, but you're doing that, you know, in their benefit. And so this allows me in those situations because I'm fairly confident in what we're going to do, extremely confident. And so you being confident and being able to let them know, hey, you know what, this is one of those situations, it's addition by subtraction. Mm-hmm. And they didn't understand it right away until they experienced it and they saw it, and then they went through the process and they figured out, wow, we're actually okay. And so now, because it's part of our culture, they'll come up to me, oh, addition by subtraction on that one, right? I'm like, yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good observation. And you're listening and you're paying attention, and you can kind of see what's happening. And so it's rewarding to see my staff be able to understand that now. Right. And so that's
well, and several years ago we had it was our first experience with like somebody in our gym that was influential that exited, and she had been there. She was besides my daughter, our younger daughter, she was the one that had been there the longest, and very just some of the things she put on social media and things that she did in her personal life, we definitely did not agree with. But I think she's kind of like that big, like bully mean girl, and she put it out there everywhere, you know what I mean, like what she was doing. And then if Danny said something to her, hey, everything that she did was kind of negative. And so we all were worried about her leaving because of her influence on social media and those types of things and those platforms. She had a whole bunch of social media followers for her hair. And so it was, she was not very talented, but she was just, you know, for the wrong reason. Nice. She had all of these things, but she'd been with the coaches forever since she was 5. They loved her. You know, they kind of, you know, saw her grow up in a dysfunctional situation. So they all kind of had a, you know, we all kind of helped build her. But, you know, there are certain things we couldn't obviously save her from. And so when it finally got to a point where she left, and I was scared to death with some of the things. But however, after that, we had so many parents tell us, we're so happy that she's no longer there, because all these little ones are looking up to her, feeling like they had to look like her, they had to act like her, you know, and it ended up being probably the best thing it did for our expectations, able to set those true expectations for our kids, because we had these, and then here she was over off here, and they were like, oh, but you said this, but she's over here doing this, one of the, you know, the oldest kids in the gym. And so it ended up being something great. But and what
was awesome is, I will pay credit to Ray,
yeah,
in the other room. He actually helped us see that, because we're so close to it. He helped us see it, and he actually stepped up during choreography and was verbalizing, hey, this is what's going on. This, you know, you're not guaranteed a spot in the front of the dance. You're not doing that. You have to work hard. And he delivered that message that we failed to deliver, and it resulted in this type of situation, because they saw the writing on the wall that I'm not going to be the center dancer. I'm not going to be this, because they're going to put the kids that want to compete for that position in there, and who earn that position and are doing the right things on the mat and off the mat. Because Ray at that time is when Ray kind of started working with us, and maybe like her second year. Yeah. And he, you know, it was very, now you're talking about that was awesome that we happened to be here and telling.
And you know, for her, it ended up being a blessing too, because it was, she's gone on and her life has completely changed. And I think she was just, you know, she moved away, you know, after she graduated, and I think she probably would have stayed to continue to be in our program and would have been around her family. So that wasn't quite so. So it ended up, you know, for her, it ended up, and now she's, you know, she talks great about the program now, and she's just changed her life around. So it sometimes can work out the better for everybody.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, you know, and I guess it's not up here, but when you do make a decision, like, because if you do have to like move a culture fit out of your gym, especially one of your employees, that's a life event. Okay, that their income is going to change. It's a life event. They're going to go through that process. But one of the things early in my career in the corporate side, when I first went through that process, I was sick to my stomach. I wanted to throw up. I had to leave work that day. I was not mature in that process. And if whenever it's easy for you, you need to quit being a leader, okay? Because you've lost something. You have blankness, which is not good, okay? But what I found was, because I was strong enough to make that decision for that individual, and you finally are the one that puts your foot down, as she just said, they will find their way and they will change if they truly want to. But you're the one that starts that process. So I'm not telling you to go out and get rid of all your staff, okay? But what I'm saying is that when it gets to that point, you're actually doing them a big, big favor, because you're looking out for them. And you'll be shocked on how well they do when they leave. Because there's life after your gym. There really, really is. Okay, there's life out there. Just like if one of our staff members leaves, they're going to be fine. Yeah. Okay. Hey, we're up for time. Thank you so much. This was great. Thank you for all the questions that you